Good day, everybody. I'm Sergeant Joe Cardy from Peel Regional Police, and I'm your host today for today's podcast. We have a nice guest today, Deputy Chief Anthony Odoardi. And a little bit about our Deputy Chief. He began his career in 1995. He worked many bureaus, including Uniform, the Drug Bureau, Investigative Services, Strategic Management, Professional Standards. He was a superintendent at Halton Regional Police. And he brought a lot of good things to policing, like public safety broadband network. He improved the services for sexual assault survivors, which we all know was long overdue. And I'm going to ask you a question on this, because I know you also sit on the board of directors of Radius Child and Youth Services. And before I go any further, what is that? I never heard of that before.
Okay, Joe. Well, anyways, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. I understand this might be one of the first podcasts that we do here, and I appreciate being one of the first guests. Radius Child and Youth Services is an organization that provides services to children who have been sexually abused or have experienced some trauma in their life. It also provides services to those who have offended that are under 18. So it's a end-to-end service provider, and it services the regions right from Toronto through to Peel over into Halton. So I'm lucky enough to sit as the chair of that organization. I'm honored to sit as the chair of that organization to help children in need.
Well, that's very good. Now it's really educational to know that. I think that's something that when you have partnerships with the community like that, we can only get better. But I don't know how to start this, the elephant in the room. You joined us 2020 in May. You became our deputy chief for Peel Regional Police. Why did you switch from Halton to Peel?
Yeah. Listen, that's a great question. And let me tell you, it wasn't an easy one for me at the time. As you said, I left Halton Regional Police as a superintendent. I was a commander of our Burlington Operations Unit. And before that, had charge of our Regional Investigative Services, which included a whole span of investigative services. But the reason I did come over, ultimately, after speaking with my family, was the challenge. Listen, we know that Peel has been regarded as one of the best police services in Canada for as long as I can remember, for as long as I've been a police officer, right from police college. I remember the Peel recruits coming in. They had a bit of a march to them. Their backs were arched up. They were prim proper, not that anybody else wasn't, but you knew you were dealing with a awesome police service. And that was something that was also evident in Halton. Halton was very good to me, and our officers were extremely professional and really regarded. Peel provides a little bit of a larger scale and allows me to promote some of the initiatives I did in Halton to come over here in Peel and do the same thing. There's a lot of opportunity here in Peel for change, for improvement, but also to keep the awesome tradition of the PRP. I want to tell you something else too. Chief Nish is one of the best chiefs in Canada. Guaranteed. He's not just a friend, but he's one of the best chiefs, and I think you'll be hard-pressed to go around and have anybody disagree with that. So to be able to follow him over here and know that, we're going to do some awesome things for the region of Peel, exciting opportunity, and that's really what it comes down to, Joe.
Well, I'm glad you guys are here. I know you joined us, like you've been here a year now, and I've been liking seeing what we've been doing. There's been a lot of change. People fear change. I like change. It's all about getting our organization better. I know I brought you here for body-worn cameras. That's our topic, and we're going to go into it. But I also want to talk about COVID-19. That is taking over the community. We're in shutdown right now. How has COVID changed the way we policed?
That's a great question, and no doubt our frontline members would be able to answer this even better than I could. But let me start by saying this. Just yesterday, in fact, I was interviewed about impacts of COVID-19 and policing within the community, and also as a family member, right? Also, when I leave this job, I'm a husband, a father, caretaker of family members. My wife happens to work at the City of Hamilton, and she oversees their long-term care. And so it's stressful these days in the household, walking on eggshells, making sure that we do what we can in both our professions to keep our community safe. So in terms of changing, policing, our folks are awesome. In an emergency, our folks will be there. COVID or not, we're coming and we're going to help. The way it's really changed is the interactions within the four walls here of our police department, our ability to engage safely with one another, and then to make sure we protect the public by engaging safely with them. So even handling a driver's license during a traffic stop, cleaning cruisers, speaking with a child at perhaps at a call, or speaking with a family member, it's taken into account the proper PPE, taken into account the proper social distancing that, it takes a while to get used to. So it's changed it in terms of interactions, for sure, interactions in the community, interactions here within the police department itself. And it's changed it in terms of how we actually address each other. Coppers like to be social. They like to reach out their hands and be the first to initiate a handshake with members of the community. And when you can't do that, and you want to talk about an elephant in the room, Joe, especially during current geopolitical times here, and some of the narrative about policing, not to establish sort of that handshake and physical contact sets us back a little bit too, right? And so it has changed. These are tough times, but we've got our chins up, and our community's been super supportive, and we'll get through it.
I agree with a lot what you just said. Policing, we engaging with the public, and Peel, we look at where one of our region is really high with the amount of COVID, people getting tested positive. How is our numbers doing for our service? How's our front line?
Yeah, the rate of infection, I think, out in the community is not what it would be here within the four walls of our service, where our infection rates are quite low. But that's because we have, by way of rule and policy, instilled strict guidelines on interactions here, spacing, distancing, testing, screening, and good hygiene in and out of frontline members, in and out of their cruisers here at work. So we're doing really well, but we really need to keep on top of that. Can't let our guard down, and certainly looking forward to vaccines that are coming to inoculate not just our officers but the community.
I can't wait for it to end. I need to go outside more, but that's just me. I could do it, I guess, if I wanted to. So let's get back to why you're here. Body-worn cameras. That's the reason why we want you here. That's the question the community wants to know. Why is Peel Regional Police giving body-worn cameras to its police officers? And before you go there, I was watching the news last night, and right on it said RCMP are using and getting body-worn cameras. And they said, is there a push for body-worn cameras to hold police accountable? Is that the news's take? What is ours?
Yeah, that's a great question. First, in case the public didn't know, I'm the deputy chief here that oversees innovation and technology. So part of that is on our roadmap was advancing our technologies to make sure we serve the public better. So body-worn cameras was really on the roadmap for PRP even before I came here, thanks to the good work of my predecessor. What we really need to know, and in accordance with what you just said about the RCMP, Joe, about accountability, is that we have to take the stigmatism from, or the negative out of accountability. Accountability is actually a positive thing. It's about providing services and being not just accountable, using that word to define the word, but understanding that our community wants us to do the best we can for them and to demonstrate that. And so, yeah, it's about accountability and transparency. And the best way to do that, and what we tell our officers and what we've told the community, is to demonstrate our professionalism. We are a professional police service. Our officers interact on a daily basis in a number of situations, both ranging from low-key to critical incidents daily. And we demonstrate that multiple times on a daily basis. And this is a tool to help us demonstrate our professionalism, demonstrate accountability, and be transparent.
When I started doing research on body-worn cameras, now, a lot of the complaints I've been hearing from the services that have it, especially in the States, because in Canada, I know Calgary has it, RCMP is working with it, and Toronto, is the cost. It seems that everyone wants to know, is the cost worth it? So my question is, how much is this program costing Peel Regional Police?
Another great question. And again, because it was on the roadmap for PRP before I got here, it was a budgeted cost. The cost really is about the data and the cameras together. So there's two parts of a body-worn camera. First, let me answer the question directly. It's about $9.5 million over a 5-year period, maybe closer to $10 million over a 5-year period that was approved by the Police Services Board. So back to what I was saying, though, it's about a camera and it's about the storage. And anyone knows who's got a Nest camera at home or a Ring or, another proprietary type of camera surveillance system attached to their homes, perhaps that data has to be stored somewhere or you lose it. And so the storage costs of that are what contribute to the costs. Also, to ensure that we are providing transparent and accountable services, we have to have a mechanism to audit the data provided to the public upon demand. And so that system that we bought is able to do all of this, make sure we redact for privacy, it's destroyed when it's supposed to be. So it's all that back-end information that costs quite a bit of money. I should also note, though, that we are looking to capitalize on some funding from the province. We announced last week we're working with the province on that back-end part, that digital evidence management part, and that is going to see Peel receive some discounts with regard to data storage. So we're lucky that way. We're proud to partner with the province on that for sure.
That also helps. You did mention storage. I didn't even think of that when I'm thinking the cost of the body camera. And you're right, storage. I do have that doorbell ring, and you have to pay for your storage, your monthly fees. Thought it just hit me. Well, how long are we storing this?
Yeah, so every situation is going to be dependent. So, Joe, if there's an interaction with a member of the public that turns into a court proceeding, and we hope that never happens, but it does, right? The reality of the situation is that it does. Then there'll be a data storage limit to that through whatever court process or administrative process is required. And that could vary, right? That could vary. It depends on however long that takes. For interactions that sort of don't go anywhere, that are not needed for any administrative purpose or legislation, we want to get rid of that fairly quickly with the member of the public's input on that. And so, I think what I should have mentioned right at the beginning when you asked me about the body-worn camera project is we're doing this in collaboration, not just with our officers, and we just had a town hall the other day with our officers who had a lot of great questions, but we're doing it with the engagement of our community. And we have several engagement sessions coming up in the next couple of weeks about that. And one of them is retention. What do you want to see? And we've heard from members of the public that they don't want their personal information stored for long periods of time. So we'll see what happens in those engagement sessions, and then we'll be able to define a time limit for those interactions where they're simply just positive interactions that don't need to go anywhere.
So we haven't had, there is no answer yet, but we're working on it.
That's right. Yeah.
The way I look at body cameras, it's the front line. Front line are going to have it. It's going to be on their vest from the pictures I've seen. 'Cause I know our airport officers have been testing it out. Is it just the front line that's going to be using this? What about our undercover or other areas that are just in plain clothes, dressed like normal? Do they have one on, or it's just going to be front line?
Yeah, and again, probably many of the questions you asked me are going to be informed by discussions with our officers on the different bureaus on what they want to see as well. Right now, the plan is for our frontline officers, officers who have interactions with members of the community on a daily basis. That's our priority. And then we can see it maybe trickling down to specialty units within the police department for whatever function that they may see it beneficial. Get the community's input on that as well, and make sure that by the end of this, we'll have a good, robust body-worn camera project.
When is all this going to start? Is this coming like this month? Is it coming in the summer? Like, when are we going to see the officers in our service all have them?
So it started and it hasn't. So it has started from a technology testing aspect at our airport division, where we rolled it out to a very few number of officers at our airport division who were keen to test the equipment. And we have an especially keen command team and officers who were eager to test it at the airport, where technology exists, certainly. And we know that travel is down lately, so it gave us an opportunity to test the equipment so that we can compile a bunch of information so that when we went back to our officers, our general pool of officers here within Peel Region and the community, we're able to provide good information about how it works, the testing. And so we've done that now at the airport. And this is why we're starting our engagement. We've just had our officer engagement session. We'll have more of those, and our community engagement coming up, several of them coming up in the next couple of weeks. So yes, it started on a pilot basis at the airport. We are now starting to roll them out, and we'll continue to develop the program as we receive that input.
So it's going to be shortly that our public's going to see our members with these body cameras.
Yeah, the public will see body cameras fully deployed. We hope by, and I know nobody can see this, but Inspector Josh Colley sitting beside me, and his eyes are crossing right now because every time I say I give a new date for full deployment, he's in charge of the project, and he has a bit of a conniption, but probably by the end of the summer, early fall, we'll see a full deployment, and we're taking that long because we really need the input of all our stakeholders.
Which is a good plan, because when I look at my life, I just got a new phone, and trying to figure it out, I'm still lost with it. Technology is not my friend, even though it should be. As an officer, what training will I receive? And is it something that's going to be like, for a guy like me, it'll be easy for me to use this, or I'm going to be like, I need to go to school for 6 months to figure it out?
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, the training is robust. There's two parts of the training, really. So the one part is the technical part, and that's about how do I turn the camera on and off. And the second part about training is, when does the camera need to come on and off? What do I do with an interaction, a video interaction? And so that initial robust training plan is underway for officers. It'll be informed. It's iterative, which means it will take shape over time. We'll add to it as we hear from experiences from officers and members of the community. But that our officers, as part of their annual training, will go in, receive the training. Josh, how long is the training right now?
2 days ago, or 2 8-hour days.
So it's 2 8-hour days. So it's pretty robust. But we'll add to that as we experience input from all those stakeholders.
I'm glad I have Inspector Colley here to get into the nitty gritty. If we have those answers, because we wanted them here in case I asked you those questions that I try and stump you on. I'm not trying to stump you. I just want the information out. I think that's the goal here, is for all of the community to understand what's going on, because I hope I could learn in that 2 8-hour days how to figure this out. Because I really believe this is something that we really need. I think it's going to help us with a lot with transparency. How if I finish my shift, like I think what a lot of the questions I'm talking to my friends is, do I have to then like download it, and who's responsible? Like, where does it, like, I know you told me it goes to that's where a lot of the money's going, is to where this is going to, but who's responsible for downloading after my 12-hour shift where this goes?
Yeah, that's a great question, because sometimes unintended consequences of implementing technology is that you actually take officers off the road when you're trying to create efficiencies, right? And be accountable and transparent. With this particular product, we provide an on-the-go type of mechanism for officers to be able to download video as required for any administrative processes. We'll have a special unit that is in charge of any particular video evidence that needs to go for an administrative process to review, redact, make sure that we have all personal information protected. So that won't be a frontline officer duty, and a frontline officer will be able to, on a daily basis, interact with the body-worn camera on the go, which means it won't take them off the road.
Well, that's good. The way I'm thinking it from a frontline perspective here, can I use the video to watch it to make my notes, or is that separate?
Yeah, so an officer is going to make their notes like they always do prior to watching video. I mean, that's the direction we're providing our officers. Their notes are important for their independent recollection. And then an officer will have access to the video to ensure that it is redacted properly, personal information is removed if necessary, if it needs to be used, so that sort of stuff. So an officer's notes are made like they've always been made, based on their recollection at the time.
Okay, that's something I would want to know at the front line. I'm just thinking, when I was talking to my neighbors about this podcast on body-worn cameras, one of the big questions comes up. If I'm an officer and I have a conversation with this member of the public and it's being recorded, do they have the right to see the video?
Yeah, so this is something that we are taking input on. Now, it's going to be difficult, let's say, at the roadside to be able to show a video of what just happened and interact. The public will have access to the video through sort of traditional means in terms of filing for a freedom of information, for sure. There'll be a process for that. But we're really still looking at and understanding what the mechanism is for sharing the video with anyone other than someone who's been actually a subject of that video or participant of that video. So I think we're shaping that one out. I don't really see the efficiency in showing a video at roadside. I'm not saying that's not going to happen. We'll certainly hear some feedback about that from the public and from our officers.
What happens if an officer it doesn't follow the procedures on that, doesn't turn it on? Is there going to be some discipline for the officer who's not putting it on when he's supposed to, or doesn't store it at the end of his shift?
Yeah. We get this question a lot, Joe, from our cops. And it's not because they're approaching it with, I'm not going to do it. By the way, I want to tell you that our frontline members want the body-worn cameras. They really do, and they're anticipating
I
it.
totally agree, because I want them.
Yeah. This is what I would say to that. Do you remember when COVID first started and mandatory masks were implemented for indoor facilities? And I remember one time being in the Home Depot parking lot, and I parked my car shortly after this. I walked into Home Depot, and I couldn't understand why everybody was looking at me and sort of cross-eyed and looking at me like I had 10 heads. And then I realized I didn't have my mask on. And I guess the point that I'm trying to get across here is that there is going to be an adjustment period for both our officers and members of the public when it comes to body-worn camera, because it's a new thing. And so we're going to take an educational approach, definitely, for our officers versus a strict discipline approach at the onset. And in terms of blatant disregard, I don't see that happening. But if it does, an officer is going to have to account for themselves like they do in any other aspect of the job. So there'll be no difference there.
I see a lot of uses for body cam. I don't know if you guys are thinking the same way I'm thinking, because I think you could use it for evidence. You enhance our accountability. I think it also improves our communication with the public. But can you use it like for a training tool? If I go into a counter, I don't want to give it a great example, but let's say it's something that we could use as a film and show it to future officers. This is a good way of doing a domestic, or this is a bad way, we shouldn't be going this way. Is it something that we're thinking of that we could use the footage for training?
Absolutely. The whole point of this is to make us better and to demonstrate to the community our professionalism, as I said, but it's to make us better and to improve. And let me give you a quick little story. When we put this out initially as a pilot program to test the technology of it, I had one of the 8 officers that had it at the airport division, told us the story to say, hey, listen, I looked at the video after this interaction, and it was a very positive interaction with a member of the public, but I couldn't believe how many times I sort of cut that person off talking, and it was positive, but it was interrupted to get an answer to a question I needed to fill in for a report, or maybe turn my back, and it just really brought the officer to understand, hey, maybe I just sort of let them finish the sentence. I think what I'm trying to say is that there's formal training. We just discussed being down in our training bureau, getting the training, and then there's informal. It's understanding, taking a look. This is why professional sports teams, do use video to, dissect sort of what they do and how they can improve. So I think officers will use it as an informal training tool as well.
The hot topic from the community will body-worn cameras be used as their surveillance?
Yeah, no, listen, I don't think anyone in the police department, but rest assured, certainly anyone at the Information Privacy Commission's office or the public would want police to use the tool as a surveillance tool. we can assure you it's not. It's a tool to capture interactions, demonstrate professionalism. I think that's the main focus. It certainly is not used and will not be used as a surveillance tool.
I've been seeing a lot of movies, TV shows where you're starting to see police officers with body cams. It's starting to become the norm instead of like, wow, what's that? From RoboCop from the 80s. And this will probably be one of the toughest questions I'm going to ask you. So prepare yourself. What's your favorite police movie?
Well, Joe, you're dating yourself if RoboCop was your favorite police movie. But listen, I'm gonna answer this. Geez, I don't watch a lot of TV. I love sports, so I try to keep it to sports. So I don't watch a lot of TV. But there's a Netflix series called Fauda, Fauda, and although it's not a police-centric movie, it's about special forces and obviously overseas that deal with crisis situations on a daily basis. So it's action-packed. So that's my favorite Netflix series. Did I cheat by giving you a series instead of a movie?
No, you did cheat. I didn't hear about that one. I'm a big fan of Justified or Bosch or something like that. Usually I don't like police movies. I find Hollywood gets a lot wrong. Hey, that's a good question. What do you think Hollywood gets wrong when they show policing?
I can answer this one. I'm pretty sure every cop feels the same way. It's timing. It's like, you always see it, like especially in the forensic aspect of it, right? You lift the DNA and you send it off to the quote unquote lab and it comes back in 20 minutes. Or there's some sort of technology roadside that links a DNA sample. I think it's just timing and how fast these things happen. And I think Hollywood does probably a pretty good job now of portraying some of the realities, especially in depending on what series or movie you look at. But I think the timing of it is probably what they get wrong. They don't do us any favors because, the members of the public are saying, how come this can happen within 24 hours or 2 hours in a movie and it takes us 3 weeks?
I didn't think about that, but I'm picturing my time on the road. Those questions will happen so many times. I go, we'll get fingerprints, and they'll be calling me the next day. Did we get the guy arrested? I go, it takes a couple of weeks. Yeah, timing is a good one. I think Hollywood gets wrong. What Hollywood does get right is they portray cops with coffee. And I know when I'm on the front line, at most of my career, I was a big coffee guy no matter where I went. I would go to Starbucks. I would go to Tim Hortons. I would go to Coffee Culture, McDonald's, anywhere. Every coffee's good. So my question is to you, are you a coffee drinker?
I am a coffee drinker, Joe. I love coffee. I like it from all the different places that cops are known to get it from. I heard the chief saying the other day, you could go to Halifax and go to a Tim Hortons and there might be some crab boxes and nets up on the wall, but the coffee tastes the same like it does in Ontario. So I like the consistency of that. But I also like the different flavors from different establishments. So I go to all of them. I don't limit.
I'm the same way. I keep rotating. I love coffee. And I'm one of the few officers will even admit it. I love donuts. I'm not going to ask you that, but I do love donuts. What I want to end this on is because we concentrated on body-worn cameras, and you are in charge of a lot of the future technology coming. And what future technology you see coming to our service in the near future?
Okay, that's really good because, what we want to do is dispel the notion that police services buy big, shiny new because it's the newest thing out in policing. And so earlier this year when I came over, we developed our innovation technology strategy. And basically what that did was provide our service focus on the real technologies that will positively impact our community and our officers, help them do their job better, more efficiently, and provide the real services that our community needs. And so that's where we focused our technology, body-worn camera obviously being one of them. And so, some of the things that we are exploring, and when we say future, I'm talking futures now. It's looking at it now. And of course, Josh is overseeing some of this, is that we want to explore some of the body-worn technology like live streaming, where we can help people in real time where we would otherwise not be able to. So can I give you an example, Joe?
Yes, I would love to hear an example.
Quickly. So what we want to do is explore the resources of mental health crisis workers, the real professionals who should be at these calls, assisting those in crisis. And we know that we do have a program here called our MCERT program, which aligns a mental health professional in a car with a police officer, but we don't have enough of them. And we will certainly not have enough of them ever because it costs a lot and just the human resource factor isn't there. And what we want to do is use a live stream technology so we can embed a mental health crisis worker into our communications department and access an officer's camera. And
so this
time.
Mental health worker will see real time.
That's right.
Would they able to speak to the officer?
They'll be able to speak to the officer and finding the right technology, perhaps even be able to communicate with someone in crisis if the situation presents itself. And if not, at least be able to provide the officer with the mitigation strategies, the advice, the know-how to successfully conclude a situation in the best manner possible, right? And I think to use that live stream technology, talking about impacts to the community and the services, then we have a potential of providing that service at a greater rate than we would just with mental health crisis workers being in the car. And let's not stop there. Let's look to other social services, real-time provision of social services using live stream technology. So, to answer your question, that's where we're focused. It's not, it's not about buying a helicopter with night vision right now, and it's about what do we do to help our community? How can we better position our officers to be successful? And that's where technology is going to take us. That's where we envision it taking us here.
So I want to end this on my final question. I thought that would be my finals, but you sparked interest when you said the community to me. How would body-worn cameras and what you just told me, this future, I don't know what it's called, will benefit the community? Will this build greater trust with policing?
Yeah, we started the topic off about, you saw in the news the other day about the RCMP, or yesterday perhaps, about the RCMP wanting to deploy body-worn camera for accountability. And I've always said this, is that trust is built in the community with positive human interactions with police. And the body-worn camera will capture interactions, and it may change behavior of both of a community member and or an officer when they know they're on camera. But the trust is built in that interaction. We can't forget that. And I think that it will help over time, but it isn't the panacea. And I see Josh smiling because I used the word panacea too much. It isn't the panacea to build trust. It's really a collaboration of.
I'm going to cut you off because of the folks who don't know what panacea means. Could you please explain that to me?
Well, Joe, listen, you told me if I took the ODO initials out of my last name and put a C there, I'd have the same last name as you. So if I have to explain it, then you're not as bright as I thought you were, although you came up with that concept. What we're trying to say is it's not going to solve everything on trust. It's not going to be the sole factor, the only factor to build trust. There's going to be a lot of positive interactions, as there continues to be with our officers, and that's where it starts. The body-worn camera documents interactions and does hold officers, community members accountable, and builds transparency for sure. But it's a collaboration of all those things.
I totally agree with you. We ended it on with a bit of a humor. Body-worn cameras, to me, I would, if I'm going back to the front line, I might be going back shortly. I don't know where my career is going. I agree. It's something I would love to see. It brings greater transparency to the job. It builds relationships with the community, and it's something that I think all services will eventually you'll see in the future. Hope this was easy for you. I know it's just not easy for you to be coming in here and me just ask questions on the top of my head. I want to thank you for coming, and I know I might even, if this is successful, have you come in the future because you have a lot of ideas on technologies, which would be a really good topic to talk about.
Joe, thanks for having me. Listen, you know me. I like getting out front of issues, not hold back. And I think this is a perfect way to ensure that both our members and the community sort of are kept up to date on what we're doing. So I should be thanking you. Thank you, buddy. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Deputy Chief Anthony Odoardi. Everyone, have a great day.